What's up, everybody? Brett here, and I'm back today bringing you guys some more info and news on Total War Warhammer 2. Today, it finally dropped. We have the patch notes, the Empire Undivided Update, as they're calling it, and it is huge, guys. It's huge. Hopefully, I'm doing you guys a favor, cutting down on some of the time. I'm going to rant. I'm going to rave a little bit. I'm going to give my opinions, but for the most part, I'm going to cut out a lot of the stuff that I know most people don't care about, and try and give highlights to the stuff that is important. So this update is so large, it has its own table of contents, and it needs it. So also, before I get started, last time I did one of these videos, I lost my voice like an hour in. I'm going to try and limit the possibility of me losing my voice. But unfortunately, I just ate a big bagel and cream cheese. So my throat is about as dry as it possibly can be. But anyway, like I said, important stuff. Let's go over the introduction and get this stuff rolling. So this automatic update arrives alongside the Hunter and the Beast Lord pack, bringing a huge array of content additions, revisions, balances, and improvements to the Eye of the Vortex and/or Mortal Empire's campaigns and multiplayer. Even if you haven't purchased the Hunter and the Beast, Marcus Wolfheart and the Kai the Wanderer's factions of the Hunt Marshal's expedition and the Spirit of the Jungle add their own distinctiveness to both campaigns under computer control, pursuing their own particular agendas and helping shape the world around you. As you know, the Total War Warhammer series is a labor of love for us and one of the longest term projects we've ever embarked upon. It's our commitment to continue fleshing out and evolving the world of Warhammer Fantasy Battles over time as fully as we are able. The next update we're planning will focus more on technical maintenance and quality of life improvements, rather than faction or race overhauls, which will then resume in subsequent future patches. So if you're waiting for a particular set of older content to get an update, we hear you and hang tight. We'll get there. Until then, there's plenty to get your rune fangs into. So this last bit here is mostly for people who really follow the content updates and are hoping that the next, time we hear from CA, it's going to be another DLC drop, but they're telling you, no. And also people who are hoping that the old world factions will get an update soon. They're telling you, hold on. Don't get your hopes up too high. Alright, so I want to go into this as well, the Empire Overhaul. I think this is pretty important. The biggest meat and potatoes of this update is definitely going to be the multiplayer changes. And some of the changes also, of course, affect campaign. But multiplayer, I think, is important to a lot of people. And we're going to get into that as well. And that's one of the areas I'm going to be saving my voice for. So, Empire Overhaul. By popular demand, the factions of the Empire race have undergone a grand-scale overhaul for mortal empires. This grants them a new and richly themed level of gameplay variety, in line with more recently introduced races and factions. So, a territory rework. The Empire territory now features 12 new regions. God, it needed that. It was so empty before. Many provinces have been upgraded from 3 to 4 regions, representing in aggregate a significant enlargement and variety in Empire holdings. The enemy within. 3 new provinces can be found in Empire territory. The Forest of Lorelorn, next to Nordland, plays host to the Wood Elf faction of the same name, while the Misty Hills north of Midland and Solent in the south, Balthazar Gelt's new home province, are subject to greenskin incursions. Very cool. It sucked playing as the Empire and only fighting state troops for the first 60 turns of my game. Alright. New fort settlements. 3 new regions are the sites of newly designed Empire fort settlements. These settlements are Helmgart. That makes sense. That place is basically a fort anyway. Fort Sol and Fort Burgrees. In battle, forts are deeper than normal cities, offering multiple increasingly higher fallback positions for defenders and bringing new challenges and opportunities to siege gameplay. Can't wait to do one of these for the first time. I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. Balthazar Gelt, the Supreme Patriarch of the Colleges of Magic, gets his own campaign start position, leading the Golden Order faction from his base in Fieldorf. He is in close proximity to the greenskin-infested region of Solent to the east. Very good. So this will allow, for the most part, for people to do co-op campaigns, and I think that's what a lot of people have been asking for. Beastmen is still a pain. Yeah, so there's still quite a few factions that need to have that separation, but getting Gelt on the list is a good thing. Also, he'll be able to go into the Badlands much faster than Karl Franz. So if you're looking to, conquer the border princes and fight some orcs and dwarves and that sort of thing, he can do that. So tech tree. Empire factions now have access to the comprehensively reworked Empire tech tree. The new tree removes all building locks, offers far greater choice and variety, introduces more diplomacy enhancing techs, and unique techs which interact with the new Imperial Authority system. So we looked at that in one of my other videos, and it's much better. It's a leaps and bounds ahead of the last tech tree. It's not the most impressive one I've seen. You know, dwarves goes on forever, that sort of thing, but the Empire tech tree is now very workable. It's like kind of a little bit of a lesser version of the High Elf one, which I think is nice. Imperial Authority. The Empire Offices system is gone. It was garbage. Glad it's gone. In its place, Empire players can now extend their authority across the Empire by engaging in internal politics and quelling agitators in their efforts to confederate or go to war with the Elector Counts leading other major Empire factions. Okay, so let's read what comes along with this. We have prestige, can be used to manage the player's Imperial authority and is acquired through winning battles and constructing ever more impressive edifices. High authority grants enhanced growth, tax rate, and increases the chances of improved fealty from the Elector Counts. Low authority incurs the reverse, but plus reduced public order and leadership. If your Imperial authority falls too low, you risk the Elector Counts turning against you en masse in an Imperial civil war. That sounds cool. Okay, so I think of it very similar to almost like influence in a way from the High Elves. So fealty is an overall measure of an Elector Count's loyalty towards the Empire and is influenced by many factors, including but not limited to Imperial authority, your overall tech tree, diplomatic attitude, and the new political events, which I can't wait to get to. When an Elector Count's fealty reaches a certain height, they will pledge their unswerving loyalty to the Empire with an offer of confederation. If their fealty drops low enough, however, they may secede from the Empire altogether. Interesting. So it's a bit of diplomacy outside the diplomacy screen. Summon the Elector Counts. The new Elector Counts panel displays the characters which occupy Elector Count roles and tracks their fealty towards the Empire. Should you own an Empire State capital city, you can assign a character as its Elector Count. For example, you may own Beckhofen in Ostermark and choose to assign Wolfram Hertwig to that position. This will unlock one of the legendary Runefang weapons, the Ostermark Runefang Troll Cleaver, straight out of Tolkien, and grants access to an elite, unique Empire unit variant. And Ostermark grants the Knights of the Everlasting Light. Very cool. So it gives you I mean, this is so great. All this stuff just adds so much depth and flavor to the Empire campaign. Political events. Political events are a new type of event which can trigger during the course of an Empire campaign. These can directly impact your prestige, Imperial authority, your economy, or the fealty of the Elector Counts, for good or ill. These events can drive meaningful real-world consequences. For example, if a civil war ensues, you'll have to choose sides between the Elector Counts. From time to time, you may be called upon by an Elector Count via a political event to assist them militarily against roaming invaders. Whether you choose to do nothing, offer money to fund mercenary assistance, or choose to fight directly alongside them against their aggressors, there will be a relevant impact on their fealty. Territory. If you capture a settlement considered to be the rightful property of an Elector Count, you may gift them that settlement. That is great. So gifting settlements as a post-battle option, increasing their fealty towards you. If you capture one of the Empire province capitals, you may instead install a new Elector Count of your own choosing. Gifting settlements has huge implications. We talked about this a bit with Nakai's Horde gifting. He's able to gift things to his vassal. This gifting of settlements is something that should probably be added to all relevant races, in my opinion. I think everyone who's ever played a long campaign probably wishes sometimes, like, when I'm playing as the dwarves and I conquer a bunch of, Empire lands that I don't necessarily want and aren't especially hospitable to me, I wish sometimes I could just give them to my appropriate ally faction and let them have it. The Empire Reforged. Though usurped long ago, Sylvania and Marienburg are still considered rightful Empire territory. If they are liberated, players may install their own Elector Counts there. Very cool. And I'm sure Sylvania has the Knights of More. Marienburg has the I forget what their unit is, their unique unit, but we'll see. Flummox the Elector Counts. Through the new Electoral Machinations panel, players can expend some of their prestige to influence relations between the Elector Counts, increasing bonds, inciting wars, or ostracizing bad eggs as appropriate. This works in a similar way to the High Elves Intrigue system. Yeah, exactly what I said. Very good use of that mechanic. So Slan rework, we'll read this as well. Guys, if you're looking for just the multiplayer stuff, that's going to be near to the end, but it's going to be the bulk of this video. So I just want to get through the important, relevant campaign-related stuff, and then we'll go down to that. So Slan rework. Slan are now more powerful than before and considerably better casters than Skink Priests. That's something that people have been, aggravated by for a long time, in line with their ancient and revered status. Slan may also be assessed much earlier in the campaign through Rite of Awakening. Also good. In my particular campaigns, by the time I had access to the Slan, I'd already had 3 armies, led by experienced Saurus Old Bloods, and I just, and I had Skink Priests in my, in my armies, so like I just didn't need the Slan, and they're just so slow and weak. It always felt bad to recruit them. But now they no longer wield mixed lores of mages. When a Slan is invoked through the Rite of Sotek, the player will receive a dilemma, offering a choice of which lore the Slan will wield: Fire, Life, High, and Light. Their unit model variant also reflects this choice. Very cool. And generational traits. The Awakened Slan hail from the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th spawnings, kind of showing their age. The older they are, the more powerful, which is reflected in bonus wins of magic reserves, the XP they grant to their army, and a reduction in miscast chance. So rank increases. Key techs and buildings can increase the starting recruitment rank of any Slan gained through the Rite of Awakening. So you get them earlier, you can choose what kind you want, and they can have extra buffs. Very cool. Multiplayer unit caps. This is something I don't like and don't agree with. I don't like CA as a company, as a developer, putting limits on what the multiplayer community can do in their own battles. If you want to do that, instead of being really heavy-handed by actually applying caps to an evolving meta system, then you should do that with gold, which is to me kind of a soft cap. So let's just read real quick what they've added, because this has implications. In an effort to build a fairer playing field in multiplayer battles across the many playable factions, we have introduced a flexible new cross-category cap system. This has been designed with the following aims: limiting multiple variants of the same rare units across different categories, example, core roster Dreadsaurians and their Regiments of Renown counterparts; limiting multiple variants of the same unit within the same core roster, Stegodon unit variants, and Stegodon character mounts; preventing the creation of armies full of Regiments of Renown. That last one has me a little bit bothered. And whether a unit contributes to a cap, and how close the player is to a specific unit type's cap within their current army build, is tracked via unit card tooltips. So, this is like my own opinion, man. But if you bring an army with a bunch of Dreadsaurians, you're going to die. You're going to lose in multiplayer, right? It's not a strength to have a completely unbalanced army in multiplayer. There are some builds, I can think of Wood Elves are probably the most easily and aggravatingly cheesable armies in the game, so I'm going to use them as a good example. You can build, you can take it on a forested map. I saw this recently in a Turin hosted like multiplayer showcase that he did, and one of the players brought 1 unit of infantry. He hid them in the forest as far away from the battle as possible. He brought some Hagbane tips, skirmishing cav, so they're super fast and they apply poison, so nothing in the game can catch them on foot. You have to get extremely lucky to catch them, or have really powerful flying units. And he brought just a ton of flyers. He put his Lord on a dragon. He brought a dragon. He brought his caster on an eagle and a bunch of hawk riders, and just sat in the air, and he shot the Vampire Counts player to death, while the Vampire Counts player hid in the forest, trying his best to mitigate the missile damage, and he had nothing that could catch him. And there was a big rift in the community while this was going on. There were people who were more like me, upset by the Wood Elf player strategy. It's really an abuse of the game, in my opinion. it's something you can do. It's in the game. So, you know, to say it's wrong is not quite right. But to say it was fair also wasn't quite right. So you ask yourself, you know, who should be the arbiter of what's right and wrong if so many people disagree? And I think there's a middle ground to be reached there. Maybe that's what CA is trying to do by adding these multiplayer unit caps. But in my opinion, a lot of these caps can be reached through gold. Now, I'm not 100% out of favor with reducing maybe some of the special units. But like I said, if you're bringing Dreadsaurians, they are so prohibitively expensive. You can maybe fit 3 of these in your army plus your Lord. And then the other guy's going to bring 20 units and just gun you down or kill you with cheap spears and stuff. Like, I don't think this is the solution. And Regiments of Renown are appropriately costed above standard units. So if I want to bring an entire army of Regiments of Renown, I should be able to do that, but I should do it with the understanding that my army will probably be weaker than if I had cut a few of those Regiments of Renown, which, to be fair, all Regiments of Renown are not created equal. They're not all very strong. And then took a more balanced army approach. So really, when you play this way, you really only hurt yourself. So I just don't think this is needed. And I think it goes into a weirder territory of, you know, the game company sticking their hands into a player-developed meta. And in a very hard way. And, you know, I think adjusting gold costs and adjusting stats bit by bit, you know, piece by piece, as they've done always to try and actually balance things, I think is the preferred way, in my humble opinion. So that's enough of that. Headline fixes. So a raft of tweaks to AI behaviors on the campaign map to make for a better variety of experiences within a campaign. Fix the issue that was causing event feed messages to display correctly. Okay. We're getting to the part where I'm going to skim, and there may be a few moments of silence as I skim and look for the stuff that's either funny, because CA loves to hide Easter eggs in these, or actually important. Okay? So right off the bat, I see that this is important. Vampire Coast factions can now recruit at sea using the flagship expansion stance. That's cool because before you could end up spending turn after turn after turn at sea and not being able to do anything. Now they can actually recruit at sea, which makes sense because their units are either sea monsters or drowned and undead seamen. So, okay. Tweaked visuals. They tweak Regiment of Renown stats. This is kind of a big deal. So tweaks which affect difficulty levels harder than normal, making campaigns played in these modes more challenging. So they've tweaked how this is kind of weird. Veterancy impacts unit stats. So we'll have to see specifically what that means in order to understand how that helps this, because I think what they've done is, and I remember reading something further down, but it made it so that the AI at higher levels gets more veteran units. They get more experience per turn. So if you add that to the fact that they've changed how veterancy impacts unit stats, then you can see how if you're playing on very hard, for example, you'll be fighting some more veteran units, and they will of course be stronger based on that. So balance patch to shake up the meta. I like that. And tools updates for modders. So if you're a modder, you probably don't need me to read this to you, that's for sure. But there is a big area at the bottom for modders specifically. It looks like, and they've also forgotten some stuff if I read correctly on Reddit, and there's a lot of new tools and quality of life changes for modders as well. So that's about all I'm going to say on that. I'm not really going to go into that, but hopefully, you know, if you're a modder, you know what you're doing. You don't, like I said, you don't need me. So campaign bug fixes and improvements. The first one is pretty funny. It's Philip Billings has had quite enough of the mosquitoes, snakes, and angry tropical Norskins attacking the New World colonies, and is headed back to the Old World for a well-earned break. Basically, he was a meme character in the New World colonies, and they decided to change him to a huntsman lord. And yeah, so they just kind of gave him a little homage. Okay, this is the part where I am definitely going to skim. It's just a lot of fixes on crashes and errors. There's a lot of little quality of life things. I hope you read that on your own. Vampire Coast rogue armies will no longer respawn in mortal empires when not playing as Vampire Coast faction. So you can actually clear out the seas now when you're playing as someone else. Minimum research rate is now 5%. A lot of these are buffs, guys. So buffs are, that's not the right word, are fixes. Faction capitals that cannot build wall buildings will now receive improved tower projectiles from their main settlement chain. That's cool. So instead of being, you know, very vulnerable, they're now much stronger. I'm trying to think of who that applies to, but doesn't come right off the top. A lot of these are just fixes or minor tweaks, things you might have, you know, noticed in your campaign. You're like, why is this all messed up? And then I think they've kind of touched a few things. So Skaven landmark layers of Claire Quran now produces +5 food. That'll help because Skaven need all the food they can get. And this is a cool one. So these few right here. The Nuln Gunnery School landmark now grants access to artillery unit recruitment. Great cannons at tier 3. That's cool. So I love to make a V-line for Nuln whenever I play my Empire campaigns. Right after I take over Marienburg, I want Nuln. They give such great buffs to your artillery, but now this special building actually gives you early great cannons, which is a good reason to go there. And then, and along a similar line here, the Blazing Sun Chapter House landmark at Talabheim has been removed from tier 4 to tier 3, which is perfect. And the armory requirement for Knights of the Blazing Sun has been removed. This should generally make the Knights more accessible, considering their already very strict geographical limitation, and they no longer share the same tier as Demigryph Knights. So what would always happen to me was I would confederate, I would, you know, get control of this. 50 turns later, when I build up all the appropriate buildings, I can finally get Blazing Sun Knights, and too bad, I've already got Demigryph Knights. So I only get a few of them in like Volkmar's army for fun. Otherwise, you don't need them. The earlier, like, this is just a general step towards fun, which is something I greatly appreciate. Sometimes you have to put balance behind fun, and, you know, making it so that these really cool units that you can only get from one place, you had to wait the entire, like, the game's over. Like, I'm done playing. I've killed Archeon. I've conquered half the map. I don't need the Blazing Sun Knights anymore. So let me get them early on in the campaign, have them be useful, a force of power, so that I can roleplay a little bit. And yeah, so good thing. Vampire Coast can now construct the Vault of Nagash landmark if they occupy the Black Period of Nagash. That makes sense. What else can now make a second copy, can no longer make a second copy of the Waterfall Palace landmark at Orion's camp? Okay, a few little tweaks. This is a good one. Reduce the number of greenskin armies required to complete stage 3 of the Galmaraz quest chain. That's good because, man, whenever you're playing as Karl Franz and this quest pops, you're just... Usually for me, I'm nowhere near the Badlands. There are no orcs around. They've added orcs to the Empire area, but to get this done, I basically had to abandon whatever I was doing and then go south and kill orcs. And it could take forever. Sometimes you could cheese it. You could just kind of halfway beat up an army, let them go, beat them up again, let them go. You know, that sort of thing. And you could get it done quickly, but it was weird. You shouldn't have to do stuff like that. So confederating with another Skaven faction will now transfer ownership of their under empire. That's cool. Lokir no longer is affected by the loyalty system. That makes sense. Still reading. This is cool. Alistair the White Lion now starts with immortality unlocked. So Alistair, he's one of my favorite favorite characters in the game, which is crazy because he's not a lore character at all. He was a character that was created for a Make-A-Wish Foundation, for a young man who passed away sadly, if memory serves. And he asked to be made into a character, and I have a specific character made for him. And CA kind of did that quietly without much fanfare. And he's a really cool hero, or a really cool lord rather, that I always use. He's one of my favorite characters, like I said. But if he died early, that was it. you lost him. But giving him immortality is almost like a nice tip of the hat to the person that they made his character for. So I like that a lot. You know, the whole point of it was to give that young man some immortality, and I think they did that. So, okay. Keep on reading. Tons of stuff. Like I said, guys, feel free to read this on your own. Lots of little effects. They fix a lot of stuff with the Amethyst Wizard being weird. They did add him later, so makes sense that he would have a few little bugs here and there. Gray herds no longer use the underway stance icon. Okay. Interesting. What icon will they use? I don't know. Malekith has shed his angry bad guy facade and decided that running on the campaign map is no longer beneath him. Well done, Malekith. He still probably hates sand, though. Oak of Ages now has a ruined model when nuked. That's cool. That's something... I think they had it in the mini campaign, but it was never carried over into Mortal Empires. I think that's correct. The Archlector will no longer swing his hammer through his own head when in mustering stance. I like that. The less clipping, the better. Now if they just fix Archaon, so his helmet doesn't go through his like neck guard thing that he has. This makes sense too. Malekith and Dreadlords now use armored versions of Cold Ones as mounts in campaign. Yeah, that makes sense. They're just riding around on naked velociraptors. Okay. Bunch of small issues they were having with clipping and anything else. I don't think so. Some stuff involving achievements. Okay. Yeah, that's it, guys. So we made it through that pretty okay. There are battle bug fixes and improvements. Ooh, this is an important one, so we'll read a few of these. But once again, we're gonna skim through what we can. If you see this little bar on the side here, we are nowhere near the end of this, and we've been going for quite a bit already. So the melee attack and melee defense bonuses granted by veterancy have been adjusted. It no longer favors defense. As a result, we've had to slightly retune Regiment of Renown units' stat lines to match their new rank 9 veterancy benefits. Most Regiments of Renown units see a change of plus 1 to 3 melee attack and a minus of 1 to 3 melee defense from this change. So that's the changes they were talking about earlier. Okay, Empire Cannon Towers now shoot cannonballs. Once again, more stuff. I'll try and skim this. Okay, that makes sense. Tic-Tac-Toe can no longer capture buildings in siege battles. He's on a flying mount. Huh. Explosion damage is now applied when an entity radius intersects with explosion radius. Previously, entity center was used to detect whether explosions affected them, which created issues where small explosions dealt no damage when entity radius was larger than the explosion. I felt like I noticed this on certain units, certain artillery pieces. Sometimes you would get like what looked to be some sort of hit and it would just do no damage. I was just kind of shaking my head. Okay. Man, these are a lot of really small fixes. Morgar's Ardor of Fury ability now applies Primal Fury to all units in his army. That's nice. He has... The Bloated Corpse had 25 bonus versus Cavalry. That was probably a bit of a mistype instead of bonus versus Large. Raven Heralds can no longer hide in the forest. Turns out flying units can't hide. That makes sense. Luther Harken no longer stops benefiting from the explosive bullet skill when he gains his mount. That's cool. So his ranged weaponry will still be very effective versus blobs of infantry whenever he's up on his Terrorgeist. So that's cool. They adjusted some of the animations for Albrecht. Yeah, some little weird, like Amethyst Wizard would do weird stuff with his sword. Invisible shield, yeah, okay. So a lot of these are just weird animations that have been there forever. The female Gallows arrow wasn't like notching in its bow. The Dreadlord was like holding up a shield when it didn't have one. This one almost made me choke. Cetra's weapon will now sit correctly in his hand when using Chariot of the Gods. Cetra does not swerve. Stupid. Okay. Anything important? Come on. The Gallows Giant's flamethrower projectiles no longer disappear before they hit max effective range. This is cool because it really did. It went like invisible near the end and you couldn't see, you know, where the range was. This is another one. So this is a great example of CA taking community feedback, especially on Reddit. People were noticing that the Steam Tank's textures showing as low resolution, that was something I noticed independently like a long time ago, and I zoomed in on the Steam Tank, really excited to look at it one day, and it just looked blurry. It looked bad, and I never really thought too much about it because I'm not really, you know, that's not a huge deal breaker for me. The Steam Tank is still cool, but when they released the new Steam Tank, the special Steam Tank as part of this DLC, it looks just as bad as the other Steam Tanks. So a lot of people complained, and they seem to have fixed it. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy that, you know, CA took some feedback. Fixed a gap in the Arch Lector's skirt. Peeping halflings will no longer get an eyeful. Okay. Alright, anything else? You guys have no idea how much I'm saving my voice by not reading this. This is a big thing. This happened to me in a replay that I don't know if I cast it. I might end up casting it today or tomorrow. But during a battle, if the player's army is reduced only to their general, the unit panel will no longer disappear. I was very aggravated during a 2v2 that I played where, you know, it was down to the last couple of units. My army routed. I still had my Arch Lector. And all of a sudden my unit panel disappeared and I couldn't use any of his abilities. I could still control him, tell him who to attack, tell him where to run, but his portrait in the bottom left was gone. And also, you know, I couldn't use any of his abilities. So it was very frustrating. And at that very close battle, I definitely could have used his ward saves, his buffs to melee attack, and it would have made our win assured. But what a horrible thing that was. That was so annoying. And I've had that happen to me a few times before also. I think I actually did cast a game once where I was playing as the Wood Elves and that happened. And I was, you know, I was still in the game. I lost like maybe like 6 units were still like active. I don't know if it was 100% tied to the whole, you know, you only have your Lord left. But I was still controlling like a large chunk of my army when all of a sudden it disappeared and I couldn't do anything. So bug fixes and improvements, once again, a bunch of stuff with the AI. They'll prioritize landmark units. They will defend recently captured regions more actively. They will limit the amount of heroes. Nice. So they want the AI to behave more like a human player, which is what everyone wants, I believe. But still, you know, there's a big debate between, you know, how the AI should act. If the AI acted just like a human, it would be sometimes boring because a human player is never going to make a move that's bad for them. Sometimes you want the AI to make mistakes. And then there are people who want the game to be as hard as possible, so they want the AI to be perfect, which is also boring because it means the AI is never going to make a mistake. And, you know, you'll find yourself stagnating in your campaigns when the AI with its unlimited budgets essentially just sitting there spamming out, you know, massive stacks, and they never leave their capital because they've calculated how many turns it would take for you to get there and capture it behind their back, right? It's not fun to see Karl Franz sitting in Outdorf for 60 turns because he knows that you're 2 turns away from taking Outdorf with a vampire stack or something. Like, that happens all the time, and updating the way the AI plays is super important. Constantly tweaking it. Reduce Nagarite's aggressiveness. I don't know, those dudes should be pretty aggressive, I think. Lithanar is an angry dude. Alright, auto-resolver bug fixes. Please be great. Low-quality single-entity units such as a Bastillodon will now take less damage. Thank you, Jesus. Fixed an issue with damaged single-entity units getting damaged excessively. Thank you. Hopefully that will actually be fixed this time. Fixed an issue where missile units that ran out of ammo were able to return fire on enemy missile units, which was being used in the auto-resolver calculation. Absolutely. You would see like your goblin archers and stuff getting hundreds of kills, and, you know, your Arachnarok spider would die in every auto-resolve. It's like, what the heck's going on? Bastillodons are probably one of the biggest examples of this. As they put it, a low quality single entity unit. It would just, like, you auto resolve, it goes down to 25% HP. Everything else in your army lost 5% HP, but not the Bastillodon. And you would auto resolve the next battle, and then your Bastillodon would die. So hopefully we'll see that actually fixed. AI passively gains more experience, as I talked about earlier. All right. Graphics and performance fixes. I'll leave you guys to read that for yourself. Hopefully, it's things that lead to, you know, better turn times, better graphics, you know, less issues, less overheating, things like that. Audio bug fixes. Once again, feel free to read that on your own. They fix a lot of the noises. Miscellaneous bug fixes and improvements. Okay. Incompatible save games no longer be loaded by double clicking on them in the list. Okay. Alright. So, character unit balancing. Let me just take a second to scroll down here and see just how much we have. Wow. Okay, guys. Needless to say, I'm not going to read all of this. I might die before that happens. And then we also have the buffs to spells and abilities. Jesus. Okay. Let's go all the way back up. And I'm going to read the stuff that's important. And if you guys want to go way more in depth later, you're welcome to. So, just to kind of preface this, I've barely checked this, but one common theme that I'm noticing is that Foot Lords are cheaper. Foot Lords, horses, you know, lords that ride horses, they're all cheaper by like 100. You know, 50 here on Alberic's Barded Warhorse, that sort of thing. So certain lords are getting cost reductions, which I greatly appreciate. Beast Lord, Khazrak, Morgar each get, you know, cost reduction. They needed that. Minotaurs can now hide in the forest. That's great. They get better bonus versus infantry, but they cost more. I don't like that. That's bad. Minotaurs do not need to cost more. Chaos Spawn and Giants now cost 100 less. That's great. I think Giants have received a cost reduction across the board. Chaos Spawn also needed it. They're one of the least utilized picks. And they're also, I mean, they're great units. In certain matchups, let's say the Beastmen versus Undead, they're unbreakable. They have poison. And they just chew through cheap infantry like nothing else in the game, really. And, you know, for an extra 100 reduction. You know, let's say I bring 3 of them versus vampire counts. That's an extra 300 gold for me to get another group of, you know, Ungor Raiders or something. Ungor Spearmen all have Vanguard deployment and stalk. That is great. They needed it. It was so weird that some of them could stalk and some of them couldn't, or Vanguard and stalk. Super weird. And it always bothered me. I had to keep half my army on one side, half my army on the other. No fun. Okay, Bretonia, Alberic, cheaper. Lewin is cheaper on foot and on his horse. Same for the Lords, Paladins. Prophetess costs 100 more on a warhorse. See, I don't think anything here needed a cost increase. Like, seriously. Nothing at all. No one picks the Prophetess. Why make her more expensive? It does not make sense. Sacred Guardian is now a free, non-optional ability in custom battle. That's great. That's a good buff to him because he's so dang expensive that now, if it's free and they didn't just add on cost to him, that's great. Okay, they somehow tweaked the animations for Pegasus Knights and increased their leadership. 10 extra leadership on the Royal Pegasus Knights is great. Projectile explosions ignore allies on the Blessed Field Trebuchet. That's cool. Okay. So Crone Hellebrand, Lokir, Malekith on foot. All minus costs. Sorceress, once again, random sorceress cost increases, which I don't really agree with. I just don't think it's necessary. By reducing the cost of the other lords, the primary, you know, legendary lords, you're already making the sorceresses and units like that less favorable. So I don't know why you would need to doubly. So, you know, you're reducing the cost here, increasing the cost here. And why am I ever going to take a Supreme Sorceress on a cold one when I can take, you know, Marathi? Like, it's just weird. You know, buffs. Seems to be a general theme of lowering melee defense and raising melee attack. Maybe they're trying to make battles less grindy. Okay, so dwarves here. From what I saw earlier, dwarves seem to be the general winners in this update. So, Ethereal Dwarf Heroes plus 5 hit reaction ignore chance, plus 15 knock interrupt ignore chance, minus 100 cost. So, we're going to see that a lot. The Dwarf Lord gets more AP. A lot of these guys, these Dwarf Lords, Runesmiths, Thanes, Engineers, they're all getting, they're going to be interrupted less when they go to attack. They're having their mass increased, and they are having cost reduction. So what that's going to translate to, especially in the case of Grombrindal, Belegar, Ungrim, with their plus 600 mass because they are foot lords, is they're not going to get knocked around as much by dinosaurs, chariots, anything. 600 mass, it's hard to quite quantify that because it's 600 mass. Like, what does that even mean? But I think these are good buffs. We should see them stand and fight much better, to deal damage much better. Some lords, you don't mind if they get knocked around because it helps them stay alive. But Ungrim has huge weapon strength, and he just doesn't get to use it because he gets knocked around all the time. And having their cost reduced generally for Dwarf Lords, I think, is great. And anytime you see plus AP minus base, you're getting a buff. So Thorgrim's damage is actually getting buffed here, as is most of the other dwarves. The Flame Cannon is getting 150 cost increase. Let's see what the rest of this says. It's getting huge AP increase, plus 65 projectile damage, plus 100 base projectile damage, minus 36% projectile calibration area, and plus 20 projectile fiery range. So it'll be more accurate for longer. That's kind of what I'm reading into it. And it'll do a ton more damage, but the Flame Cannon, I still don't think it'll be used. Not with that 150 cost increase. It's just not. The range is such that the cheap Eagle Claw bolt throwers and things that other races can field, the cannons that vampire coast can field, they just instantly snipe your flame cannon. Like it, like the groups that you actually want to use this against can just counter it, and before the lines even meet, your flame cannons are going to be offline. Okay. Anything else? Bugman Rangers got an increase to their cost. They have more damage. Same thing for the Rangers. This might be necessary. I pretty much always take Rangers now over Quarrelers. This might make me think twice about it. Okay. And the Gyrocopters have a plus 15 bonus versus large on their Brimstone guns. Toddy on... That's hilarious. Okay, so all the Empire Lords and everything got a cost reduction. Very cool. Empire Captains got a 25 cost increase on a Warhorse. Interesting choice. Same thing for the Warrior Priest, the Empire Wizards. Pegasus can't hide in forests. This is cool. So on Ultra, which is basically what I play on, Ultra unit sizes, the Imperial Griffin gets plus 560 HP. That was needed. He used to be kind of a cool choice, but he was so squishy on his Griffin. Didn't quite make sense. Anything else? Hellblaster Volley Gun, just a little bit cheaper. And gets an increase to its damage. Very cool. And the Hellstorm Rocket Battery gets more damage as well, so more AP. Demigryph Knights are 50 cheaper. That makes sense as well. I think those are just the standard ones. And Grimgor is 100 cheaper. Thank you. And he has less chance to be, interrupted. Very good. Skarsnik also needed to be cheaper. Yeah, I think this is all good. Anything else? Doomdiver Catapults got a plus 50 cost increase. I've seen people spam them lately in the meta, so I kind of understand that. Giants have a minus 100 cost, as we've said, across the board. They are cheaper. Okay, Princess has increased projectile mass. That's good. Some units, Lord units with bows, they shoot at infantry, they kill 3 or 4 with a shot. She would shoot at infantry, and it would, hit the first guy, and he would just fall. It just felt so lame. It's a nice buff to her. Maybe it'll kill more units when she shoots, is what I'm thinking. Dragon Princes lose mass. Interesting. Okay. Not sure they needed that, but Krokgar gets plus 5 leadership. Makes sense. That dude should be pretty much unbreakable. Lord Mazdamundi on his Palanquin is plus 50. That's weird. Ooh, Skink Priest on a Pterodon plus 200. Ugh. I mean, they were super cheap, but I don't like that. Okay, Lord Croak plus 300. That might have been necessary. For everything he gives you, he's basically like having a second Lord. I don't know about 300, maybe 200, 150, something like that. I'm always erring on the side of, going towards the middle of that. Okay. They have slightly increased turn speed. Minus 10 armor. I don't like that either. I think what they're trying to do is really differentiate the Salamander hunting packs from the new Razordons. Stegodons, all Stegodons get minus 10 armor. I don't like that. Really don't like that. They've lowered the cost a little on those Stegodons. Feral Cold Ones get plus 8 health per entity. That's nice. They should be stronger than Warhounds. Okay. Wolfric cheaper on foot, more expensive on chariot. Wow, on his Mammoth. See, this is just wrong. On his Mammoth, Wulfric is the biggest target in the game. It's honestly bad. So to further decrease his health and to increase his cost, someone doesn't know. I disagree with this completely. If you reduce the health, I'm not happy, but like I can live. But you did two of these things at once, and neither one of them was needed, in my opinion. I don't like that at all. Mammoths are already in a horrible place. They're fun, they're cool, but like minus 500 mass probably also bad. On the War Shrine, another unit that nobody picks. It's just you're debuffing and increasing the cost on units that people already are scared to pick when they are the coolest unit in the faction. So all you're doing is disincentivizing people from using the coolest units in the faction. No one's out there with a Mammoth build that's just like crushing the meta. Like there's just no reason for it. Norscan Warhounds are getting Vanguard deployment. That's cool. Miststalkers are becoming more expensive. They are, you know, pretty solidly entrenched in the meta right now. Famir Warriors as well. I don't know that they needed a cost increase, really. Alright, Skaven. Foot Lords cheaper. Great. Assassins are cheaper. Those guys are already pretty strong. They're nerfing the Warlock Engineer. Because I've seen this already. Someone said that their armor that they have has basically had its DPS cut in half. So that AoE damage over time armor that they used to have is gone. I love the Bonebreaker. I'd love to see him get buffed. Anything else that's super important? So they lowered the range on the Jezzails and made them even weaker in melee. And I think this was to fix the fact that towards the end of their max range, they were just were fizzling out. Hopefully that fixes that. Alright, Tomb Kings. Same cost reduction. Casket of Souls with Katep shoots an additional two projectiles per volley. Let's see what that translates into. Maybe more damage. Terrain penalties for large entities. Got it. Casket of Souls, the same buff. Okay, cool. And Sepulchral Stalkers get one additional ammo, so they can shoot more of their little poison venomous attacks. Vampire Coast. Aranessa overall just gets cost reduction. She needed it. I like the buffs to Celastra. Reduce cost, increase her melee damage. Gunnery White on foot, minus 100 cost. I like this a lot. Loaded Corpse should almost be free. That unit is so bad. They buffed the Depth Guard. They needed that plus 4 health per entity. I thought when they last debuffed them that was a mistake. I'm glad to see they're giving them something. Tharian's got a bit extra leadership. That's good, because if you rear charge these units, they basically just insta-crumble. Maybe that plus 2 leadership makes a difference. Who knows? Deckhand mobs are becoming a little squishier. And once again, I'm just seeing weird, you know, these Night Terrors and stuff. Like, some of these units are already bad. I mean, no one's abusing deck droppers. Just leave the cost alone and reduce the cost of the bombers, which literally no one uses. Okay, that's enough of that. Yeah, I don't want to get too like upset about some of these changes. Some of these, I'm sure they're looking at data somewhere. They're seeing somewhere somebody's abusing something, but I've never seen it, and I can't even think about how to do that myself. So, more cost reductions for vampires. Stats across the board. Okay. Same thing as everyone else. Warriors of Chaos. Archaon is cheaper on foot. Man, Prince Sigval getting even cheaper sounds nice. He's already the cheap lord choice. Dragon Ogres get plus 15 armor. They needed that. Awesome. I was just thinking, watching a tournament, that, man, it sucks that the Dragon Ogres came so early in the development that I feel like they got left behind when you compare them with many of the other large units, especially from the Lizardmen that are coming out. They needed. I was like, man, they need something, and giving them 15 armor, I think, is a great choice. The Swords of Chaos also, I think, are coming out big winners here. Plus 10 melee attack, plus 3 melee defense, plus 10 AP melee damage, minus 15 bonus versus infantry. Fine, you know, they increased all the rest of this stuff. Plus 5 base melee damage, but they increased their cost by 100. So they made them a lot stronger, but they also made them more expensive. We'll have to see. I think they needed this buff, but I don't know if they needed the cost increase. They're already expensive. Chaos Giant and Chaos Spawn also reduced. And they lowered the missile resistance for Sartorial. Interesting. So that was his big draw. You know, he had such huge missile resistance that you couldn't snipe him. So certain factions, he was just like an auto pick. You know, if you're fighting the High Elves or the Wood Elves or Dark Elves, whatever, anyone that likes to snipe Lords, Sartorial was your go-to pick. And now, I still think he might be. I think that puts him down to 50 missile resistance. Still pretty good. Orion gets Vanguard deployment. Alright, we're in the Wood Elves now. He gets a plus 50 cost increase. That's not terrible. I always thought he was kind of cheap for how much versatility he gives. Durthu plus 10 armor. Ancient Tree Man plus 10 armor, minus 100 cost. I love that. I love the Ancient Tree Man as a lore choice. Especially when you take the lore of life, so you get a healer and a giant monster lord all in one. Branch Wraith, reduced cost and added immune to psychology. So the Wild Hunters of Kurnos, they removed the Guardian ability, which never made sense because they're a unit that you don't ever want to keep next to your lord. You want to use them out in the world to harass and deal damage. They added magical attacks and 13 bonus versus large. They made them more expensive and gave them increased melee attack, reduced their melee defense. Okay. I think that's fine. I just hope they gave Guardian to someone else. Okay, they made the Hawkeyes of Drakira a little bit better in melee. Firebark Elders got increased to armor. That's cool. Okay, Hawk Riders need some love for sure. They made the entity 12% wider. Improved firing animations to make first volley faster. Okay. A little weird, but I guess that makes it so that you can scoot and shoot with them a little bit better. Alright, abilities and spells. And this is the last big section. I think there's a big section here down here for modders. Like I said, I'm not going to go into that, but there are some special thanks, I think, down here. If you want to take a look at these names, people who really helped the CA, helped CA and the community by developing the mods that they do. So big shout outs to them. I'm sure some of the changes were their ideas. Okay, abilities and spells. So summon unbindings now split into 3 phases with different colors. Blue for stable, orange for weak, and red for critical. This is awesome. So I could never tell how close my units were to unbinding. This is a great change. So, man, it's so good. I honestly I never saw this. I'm happy that this is something that they changed. Awesome. And they nerfed Deliverance of Itza. That needed a nerf. It literally crashed my computer the first time I ever cast Tier 3 Deliverance of Itza. Like, I killed hundreds of units in one cast. And my laptop crashed. Okay, they're buffing some of the Vortex spells. And they actually deal fire damage now. That makes sense. Why wouldn't the fire spells do fire damage? So they're trying to bring... Huh, interesting. They're nerfing in some areas and strengthening in others. They're trying to make, I guess, the spells function more uniquely. So we have Exorcism here, Lore of Light lore passive. Used to lower leadership for undead, and now it changes to a map-wide AoE augment that affects all allies. Gives immune to psychology and +4 leadership whenever the Wizard of Light with the Lore of Light casts a spell. That's very good. I like that a lot. Bestial Surge is changed. Sunfang gets minus 15% base vortex damage. Seems like a small nerf to Sunfang. Projectile damage from 26 to 1 on Grand Soulfire. Explosion damage no longer affects allies. Removed magic resistance increase in radius. Reduced bombardment spread area from 30 to 15. That's weird. Maybe they made it do more damage, but it no longer has the magic resistance? That was the coolest thing about it. Huh. So they lowered the AP projectile damage on Fireball and lowered its base damage and projectile penetration. So they really nerfed the hell out of Fireball. People were spamming it. You can still get the AP if you upgrade it. But you can't like two-shot casters and stuff with Fireball. You never should have been able to do that. Okay, what else? So yeah, this is the Warpstorm armor. HP change. Frequency from 0.5 seconds to 1. DPS is halved. Rune of Wrath and Ruin. Minus 48 speed change to minus 72%. So the dwarves are really going to be able to protect their flanks now. And it reduces charge speed. No longer deals direct damage. That's garbage. I mean, that's horrible. I don't think I'll take this anymore. If it doesn't deal direct damage, I don't think I'll take this. I see the multiplayer implications of being able to reduce speed by 72% and then you shoot someone with your gun line, like I get it. I think this is perhaps a bit of a mistake. I would rather have it lightly or, half a unit speed and deal some damage than it really reduce speed and charge and do nothing. That's my hot take. I think that's bad. Okay. Doombolt, 13 spell, minor damage increases. They increase the damage on gyrocopter bombs. That's cool. Can't believe that. The dwarves are like my favorite race. Them nuking Rune of Wrath and Ruin into oblivion, man, I don't like that. They already made it so that you only had 3 casts of it, whereas before it used to be infinite, which was, I agree, was overpowered. But man, removing that damage aspect is terrible. Thunderbolt and Comet of Casadora both got huge explosion, AP explosion damage buffs. They needed it. They were some of the weaker like AoE spells you could cast. The Giver of Glory, the War Mammoth Warshine, removed Unbreakable attribute effect, added plus 26 melee attack, plus 16 leadership, plus 13 seconds duration, added max 3 uses, added 3 seconds recharge, or 30 seconds recharge, increased target range to 60 meters. So that's it. I think this is an overall net positive for the War Shrine War Mammoth. A unit that no one ever took. Maybe now if you're trying to make a blobbed up. This is much more like the Dread Saurian Regiment of Renown unit. Lord of Undeath plus 40 seconds summon duration. Cool. Spider Hatchlings minus 30 seconds summon duration. I mean, they lasted a long time, but 30 seconds is huge. I mean, they're not trying to even go with the middle ground for some of these. They're just straight up smacking them with the hammer. The idea is to make everything balanced, not to make some things suck and some things more powerful. All of these other things are very small Winds of Magic cost reductions or increase. Adding extra duration for a Flaming Sword of Ruin is cool. The spell I like quite a bit. Okay, the armor buffing spells, or debuffing spells, both of them have been buffed. Pretty cool. And there's a lot of them, as you can see. And Potion of Toroi now has max 4 uses. That's on Teclis. And they reduced the range of effect for the Shield of Chakra to 30 meters and added 3 max uses. I don't like that. I don't mind the 3 max uses. I think that's okay. But reducing the range to 30 meters is very small. It's like basically if my Lord's not standing directly on top of their unit, I'm not going to get the effect. So whereas before you had the possibility of maybe getting, the Shield of Chakra would hit its own unit, it would hit a unit next to you, and then maybe like a Lord. Now it's like you're just going to hit your unit and you're just going to hit the Lord. It's a lot less effective, and this unit is very expensive. They are very good though. And like I said, we're not going to go over all of these mod changes. You're welcome to do that in your free time. But guys, that's going to be it for me today. I managed to make it through this very long patch notes without losing my voice. I'm super excited. If you stuck around for the whole thing, thank you very much for watching and listening. If you'd like to, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you guys would head on over to my channel, subscribe. I'm a new YouTube channel. I just hit 300 subs like yesterday, which is a huge milestone for me, and I want to say thank you to everyone who did sub in the last week. It means a lot. And yeah, any comments, any discussions that you guys want to have? I'm definitely the type of person who loves to hear other people's ideas, and personally, I can take constructive criticism well. If you guys have differing opinions from me, I'd love to hear them. If you agree with me, that's fine too. I don't mind being agreed with. But if you think that I was off base on some of these, some of my criticisms, I would love to hear why. Yeah, just anything else. I'd love to hear your general opinions on the DLC overall. My opinions are very high. I've loved everything from the unit models they've introduced, the unit choices they decided to add. I love the campaign mechanics that they've added in. I see that they're taking steps in the right direction as far as, moving Gelt and changing the entire layout. I mean, that's going to add so much replayability to what is just unarguably the most played faction in the game. The number of times that people just play as Karl Franz in this game is unbelievable. So they're doing things in the right direction. And lastly, I'll say a big thanks to CA as well for taking community feedback well. People have been complaining about Slann for the longest time, being weaker than their skink buddies. People have been complaining, very recently about the Knights of Moor. Their unit models looked very generic and lame. So CA has confirmed today that they went ahead and changed the way they look. So they now look awesome. And just things like that. Just general, community feedback being accepted is important. So, guys, without any further ado, thank you so much for watching and listening. Once again, my name is Brett, and my channel is Good Talk Gaming. And, yeah, I hope to see you around, guys. Feel free to join my Discord if you're interested in that sort of thing. And it's a pretty good community for people who love Total War, Warhammer 2 content. So, yeah, that's it. Take care, y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.